So you thought it was stormy out last night? Hold on to your hat, because we're talking politics today. You ready? It's a little dangerous place to go, but our election process displays to the world democracy at its very best, but also at its vulnerability. But the one thing that's missing from campaigning and most of our government is humility. Now, you can make the argument that you can't come into an election with humility. You have to always be armed with answers, with confidence, right? And there's validity to that argument. But what goes unvoiced is this, that at some point, every candidate battling it out in election is going to know humility. Because they and we know that in our democratic process, there is only one winner, and everyone else has to pack up their bags and their campaign offices and their signs and go back to whatever it is they were doing before. And for the winner, well, humility was gonna catch them before they know it. It's gonna pounce on them when they're not able to keep so many of the campaign promises they make, and they get buried under the bureaucratic tsunamis. In our democratic elections and in life, humility will always be a part of the picture. And if we don't choose it, it's going to find us. The author of the Book of Wisdom tells us the same thing, mirroring it through the eyes or the message of the wicked. The wicked, they say, we don't need to listen because we know everything. We've got an answer to every question, and when you're right, everyone else is wrong, right? But wisdom, though, tells us that that's true, that is, until God speaks with a whole lot more authority and a whole lot more love. Humility is a funny thing, isn't it? If we don't choose it, it finds us. The disciples of Jesus obviously hadn't arrived at the threshold of humility either. It was not humility that led them to want a place of power. It was ambition, right? It was not humility that they wanted to keep their conversation about who's going to be the top dog free or secret from Jesus. It was their embarrassment for pursuit of the place of honor. That is, until Jesus spoke. Humility is a funny thing, isn't it? If we don't choose it, it finds us. And that's Jesus' message. That's the message of the gospel. We have to choose humility. We can choose it. We have to make that choice to be last instead of first, to choose to protect those who are vulnerable instead of holding power or control over them. We have to choose to serve rather than to be served. And that message of Jesus Christ stands contrary to so many other messages that we're bombarded with every day of our lives in our church and in our day and in our culture. It comes to us in sports and economics and politics, and yes, sometimes even in the church. But what does St. James remind us? Where jealousy and selfishness and selfish ambition exists, there is disorder and every foul practice. So we hear those voices of power and self-righteous, the voice of passion for wealth, and voices that encourage independence and control, but at the expense of others. What we don't often hear are the voices that call us to humility. Humility is about choosing to serve rather than striving for a place of honor, because in that place of servant, we're hand in hand with Jesus Christ himself. It's about choosing to listen instead of always having to have the answer, because in listening, we stand a whole lot better chance of hearing the voice of God among us. Humility is about choosing to remain poor, even when the opportunity to be rich beckons us, because passion for anything just messes up our priorities. It's about admitting we don't know the answer instead of pretending we do, about choosing to be gentle instead of choosing the hard line. It's about cultivating peace just for the sake of peace instead of for the sake of winning. Because, yeah, humility is a funny thing, isn't it? If we don't choose it, it tends to find us.